The brass bells chimed as Maya pushed through the heavy glass door of the daily grind. Her sneakers squeaked against wet tiles as droplets cascaded from her jacket onto the weathered floor. The aroma of roasted beans and fresh pastries wrapped around her like a familiar embrace, warm, inviting, yet painfully out of reach. Outside, Seattle's notorious rain hammered the windows with relentless fury. Each drop seemed to echo her own desperation. She tugged her threadbare sweater closer, feeling the holes at the elbows that she'd stopped trying to hide months ago. Maya clutched the crumpled $10 bill in her pocket, her last bit of money until who knows when. Enough for a sandwich and coffee. Not enough for her overdue rent. Not enough for tomorrow's uncertainty. But enough for this moment of warmth. The cafe buzzed with the usual morning crowd. Laptops clicked, conversations hummed, and the espresso machine hissed like an angry cat. Maya joined the line, studying the menu she'd memorized weeks ago when food was still something she could choose freely. Before we continue with today's story, if you're enjoying what you've heard so far, please hit that subscribe button. Every new subscriber helps me keep sharing these inspiring tales that touch your day. Thank you for your support. In front of her stood a man who looked like winter had lived inside his bones for years. His canvas jacket hung loose on his gaunt frame, patches sewn over patches. His boots were splitting at the seams, and his weathered hands trembled as he dug through his pockets. The barista, a college kid with paint-stained fingers, drummed impatiently on the counter. "That'll be $7.50 for the soup and bread." The man's face crumpled as he stared into his empty palms. I was certain I had more." His voice carried the weight of 1,000 disappointments. "Maybe it fell out somewhere." The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. A businessman behind Maya muttered under his breath, "These people always hold up the line." Maya watched the man's shoulders cave inward, watched him shrink under the weight of public humiliation. Something fierce and protective blazed in her chest. "I've got it," she said, stepping forward. The barista looked confused. "Excuse me?" "His meal. I'll cover it." Maya pulled out her $10 bill, her lifeline, her safety net. The man turned slowly, his eyes, pale blue like winter sky, meeting hers with an expression of pure astonishment. "You don't need to." "I want to," Maya said simply, handing over her money. The man accepted his steaming bowl with shaking hands. He looked at Maya again, and this time his gaze seemed to see straight through to her soul. "Thank you," he whispered. "You have no idea what this means." Maya shrugged, already calculating how she'd stretch her empty pantry for another day. Everyone deserves a warm meal. As he shuffled toward the door, the man paused and looked back. "Your kindness. It's rare. Don't let the world take it from you." Then he was gone, vanishing into the gray morning like smoke. Maya left the cafe empty-handed but strangely full. She walked the 12 blocks home through the rain, her stomach growling protests she'd learned to ignore. Maya's studio apartment above the laundromat smelled like detergent and broken dreams. The eviction notice still clung to her door like a scarlet letter, 3 days remaining before the locks would be changed and her few possessions would join the growing pile of her failures. She'd lost her job at the bookstore 2 weeks ago. Budget cuts, they'd said, though she suspected it had more to do with her falling asleep during her shift after working her second job cleaning offices until 3 a.m. Now, even that cleaning job was gone. The company had hired a cheaper service, one that didn't require benefits or sick days or basic human decency. Maya collapsed onto her mattress on the floor, the springs long since given up their fight against gravity. She reached for her phone, an ancient device held together by hope and electrical tape, and scrolled through job listings she'd already applied to 3 times. Nothing. Always nothing. As she set the phone aside, it buzzed with an unknown number. "Hello," she answered cautiously. "Is this Maya Rodriguez?" The voice was crisp, professional. "Yes. My name is Catherine Wells from the Morrison Foundation. We received your information from someone who witnessed your act of kindness today. Could we meet to discuss a potential opportunity? Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. I'm sorry, I don't understand. What foundation? We'll explain everything in person. Are you available tomorrow at 10 a.m.? The address is 1247, Pine Street, Suite 400. Maya's mind raced. It had to be a scam. These things didn't happen to people like her. Who gave you my information? Someone who was very impressed by your character. We'll see you tomorrow, Maya. This could change your life. The line went dead. The Morrison Foundation occupied the entire 40th floor of Seattle's most expensive high-rise. Maya stood in the marble lobby, her reflection multiplied in the polished surfaces, each one showing a girl who clearly didn't belong. The elevator whisked her upward so smoothly she felt like she was floating. When the doors opened, she stepped into a world of glass walls and impossible views of Elliott Bay. Maya Rodriguez? A woman in an immaculate navy suit approached with a warm smile. I'm Catherine Wells. Thank you for coming. Catherine led her through a maze of offices where people in expensive clothes spoke in hushed tones about millions of dollars like they were discussing lunch plans. They entered a conference room where floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city sprawling below like a model train set. At the head of a gleaming table sat a man Maya recognized immediately. The homeless man from the cafe. Except he wasn't homeless at all. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent. His hair was neat, his skin clean, and those pale blue eyes now held an authority that made her knees weak. Hello again, Maya, he said softly. My name is Robert Morrison. I'm the founder of this organization. Maya's world tilted sideways. I don't understand. Catherine gestured for her to sit. Mr. Morrison has been conducting what we call character assessments throughout the city. Testing people's reactions when faced with opportunities to help those less fortunate. You were testing me? Maya's voice cracked. Robert leaned forward, his expression gentle but serious. For the past 3 years, I've been walking the streets of Seattle, pretending to be homeless, hungry, desperate. Do you know how many people helped me during that time? Maya shook her head, her throat too tight to speak. 17. Out of thousands of encounters, only 17 people showed genuine kindness without expecting anything in return. He paused, letting that sink in. You were number 17. Catherine slid a folder across the table. The Morrison Foundation has a unique mission. We identify individuals with extraordinary compassion and provide them with the resources to maximize their positive impact on the world. Maya opened the folder with trembling fingers. Inside was a check for $50,000, a lease agreement for a commercial space, and business plans for a community kitchen. This isn't real, Maya whispered. It's very real, Robert said. But there's more. We've been watching you for weeks, Maya. We know about your eviction notice, your job losses, and your struggles. We also know about Mrs. Chin. Maya's head snapped up. Mrs. Chin was her elderly neighbor whom she'd been quietly bringing groceries to for months, spending money she didn't have because the old woman was too proud to ask for help. We know about the teenager you helped find shelter during the storm last month. About the stray dog you've been feeding. About the countless small kindnesses you perform even when you can barely take care of yourself. Tears spilled down Maya's cheeks. How do you know all this? Because true kindness is rare, Maya. And when we find it, we document it. We study it. We nurture it. Catherine's eyes gleamed with something that might have been reverence. You passed every test without knowing you were being tested. Robert stood and walked to the window. The community kitchen is just the beginning. We want you to lead our new initiative, a network of safe havens throughout the city where anyone can find a warm meal, a listening ear, and hope. But I don't know anything about running a foundation, Maya protested. You know the most important thing, Robert replied. You know what it's like to need help. And you know how to give it freely. Maya stared at the check, at the business plans, at these two people who were offering her a completely different future. Why me? Robert returned to his seat, his expression thoughtful. Do you know what I learned during my 3 years on the streets? Most people avoid eye contact with the homeless. They pretend not to see us. But you looked at me. Really looked at me. Like I was still human. He reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. That's rarer than any treasure, Maya. That ability to see the person beneath the circumstances. That's what we need. That's what the world needs. 6 months later, Maya stood in the kitchen of Haven's Table, watching volunteers serve lunch to a line of people that stretched around the block. The smell of fresh bread and simmering soup filled the air, along with the sound of laughter and conversation. Through the serving window, she could see Robert at his usual table in the corner, no longer pretending to be anything other than who he was, a man who'd learned that true wealth meant using your resources to lift others up. An 8-year-old girl tugged on Maya's apron. Miss Maya, my mom says you're an angel. Maya knelt down to the child's level, smiling at the familiar face. Little Sophia came in every Tuesday with her mother, both of them learning English and finding community in this warm space. Not an angel, sweetheart. Just someone who learned that we're all connected. When we help each other, we help ourselves. As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, Maya reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. She'd given away her last $10 to help a stranger, never knowing that one act of kindness would unlock a future she'd never dared to dream. Now she was expanding Haven's Table to 3 more locations across the city. She had a team of 20 full-time employees, all chosen not for their resumes but for their hearts. And every day, she met people whose stories reminded her why this work mattered. Robert approached the serving counter, carrying his empty bowl. Another excellent meal, he said. Same time tomorrow? Maya asked, as she did every day. Wouldn't miss it. He paused, then added quietly, you know, I used to think the test was about finding good people to give money to. But I was wrong. What was it really about? Robert smiled, the same gentle expression she remembered from that rainy morning. It was about finding my way back to believing in humanity. You didn't just pass the test, Maya. You saved the tester. As evening approached and the last visitors filtered out, Maya stood in her kitchen surrounded by the warm chaos of dirty dishes and lingering conversations. She thought about the girl she'd been just months ago, broke, desperate, invisible. That girl would have never believed this story if someone had told it to her. But here she was, proof that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest ripples. Sometimes the person you help isn't just a stranger in need. Sometimes they're exactly who you need them to be, arriving at precisely the moment when both your lives are ready to transform. And sometimes, the greatest gift isn't the money or the opportunity. It's the reminder that in a world that often feels cold and indifferent, there are still people willing to share their last $10 with a stranger who looks hungry and lost. Maya locked up Haven's Table and stepped into the Seattle evening, rain beginning to fall once again. But this time, she didn't run from it. She walked slowly, deliberately, looking into the faces of everyone she passed. Because you never know who might need to be seen. And you never know who might be watching, waiting to discover if kindness still exists in the world. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it changes everything.